This is Annie Banani telling the story of the Tap Dancing Leprechaun. Before Mrs. O'Connell, the fourth-grade teacher with big, frizzy, puffy hair as red as a fire truck, could finish her sentence about the homework assignment, 9-year-old Darcy raised her hand. "Mrs. O'Connell! Mrs. O'Connell! Mrs. O'Connell!" Darcy shouted energetically. Nobody ever could figure out why Darcy always called out the teacher's name 3 times, but she always did. "Yes, Darcy. What's your question this time?" "Oh, I don't have just one question. I have 3 questions about leprechauns." Mrs. O'Connell smiled. She was relieved to hear the extremely curious student had only 3 questions, because Darcy usually had 10 questions about every homework assignment. "My first question is why do you want us to know about leprechauns? My second question is why do you want us to write a story about leprechauns and rainbows and pots of gold at the end of rainbows? And my third question is, does the student who writes the best leprechaun story get a prize as well, an A+? Oh, and yeah, I just thought of my 4th question, and..." Mrs. O'Connell smiled, though the student sitting closest to her desk could see that she also was gritting her teeth while inhaling deeply to calm her nerves. Well, students, as usual, Darcy has asked very intelligent questions. The answer to her 3 questions are simple. I'm so sad that there isn't time for a 4th or 5th or 6th question from Darcy." Mrs. O'Connell put a sad expression on her face, called a frown. However, the student sitting closest to the teacher's desk did notice that she was struggling to keep a smile from appearing. She continued answering Darcy's question. "So, boys and girls, leprechaun stories are considered to be very old legends, and they are really beautiful, entertaining stories in the Irish culture. You see, boys and girls, every group of people in every country for a very long time have created cultural stories known as legends, which are truly important for people to have healthy identities. And with this homework assignment, the student who writes the best leprechaun story will get an A+, and the prize will be the best prize of all, the special feeling of creating and accomplishing something wonderful." Johnny, who spent most of his time in the classroom sound asleep in the back row, raised his head, opened his eyes, and blurted out, "Geez, old man, I was hoping the prize was going to be $1 million. Then I'd be so rich I wouldn't have to do another homework assignment again. Well, until my money ran out, because my dad would probably spend it all on..." Mrs. O'Connell shouted, "Thank you for sharing your hopes and dreams with us, Johnny. Now, boys and girls, I expect to read each of your stories tomorrow." That evening, after Darcy ate her dinner, helped her mom clean the dishes, practiced her guitar lesson, and finished her math homework, history homework, English homework, she then sat down at the computer and wrote her leprechaun story, which she entitled The Tap Dancing Leprechaun. "I'm absolutely positive Mrs. O'Connell is going to give me an A+. And thus she tapped into her colorful, creative imagination. "Once upon a time, in a faraway land that was covered with gigantic green trees and grass that was 1,000 different shades of green and fields of bright green 4-leaf clovers, and where all the birds had olive-colored green feathers, and each flower's petals were lime green, and the sky, which was not green, had the most colorful rainbows. There lived a village of leprechauns. Every one of them, well, everyone but one leprechaun, was 3 feet tall, had a long red beard. even the lady leprechauns. And everyone but one leprechaun wore green-rimmed glasses around their beady eyes, was chubby, had jolly round faces filled with wrinkles. Even the leprechaun kids looked like they were at least 100 years old. Maybe leprechauns are never really young and never really grow old. There was in the village an oddball leprechaun. He was, as his mother and father liked to point out to all the other leprechauns, he was different. He was tall, skinny, had no red beard. In fact, he didn't have a beard at all. He didn't have any wrinkles either. And he didn't wear glasses. Everyone looked at him like he was a leprechaun misfit. Like he didn't belong to the village. Like he didn't belong to the community of leprechauns. His name was Iam. Other leprechauns used to make fun of him. Iam's brain is melting like an ice cream. Iam's face looks like a moonbeam. Iam's so tall he makes the birds scream. Ian had something else that made him different from all the other leprechauns. Instead of running or crawling or sneaking through the green grass, he tapped dance. Yep, Ian was a tap dancing leprechaun, the only one in the entire world of leprechauns. No one, not even his parents, could figure out where Ian learned to tap dance. It was the biggest leprechaun mystery, because no leprechaun ever knew a tap dancing one. Well, one day, the most powerful leprechaun, his name was Ferndy, announced that the village was going to sponsor a special event. "My fellow leprechauns, hear me, says I. Today I'm announcing a special event starting in a few minutes. I'm calling it the Leprechaun Pot of Gold over the Rainbow Olympics. All leprechauns who can get to the end of the rainbow the fastest and find the pot of gold will be the champion. On your mark, get set, run, skip, crawl, just go!" Suddenly, leprechauns of all ages were dashing as fast as their little legs and their tiny feet could move, except for one leprechaun, Iam. He started moving all right, tap dancing, but only he could hear the music in the air. Many leprechauns were laughing at him as they watched him tap dancing towards the rainbow, and some started shouting at him, Iam likes to daydream. Iam can't run fast because he's the village tallest outcast. Iam has no red beard because he's a leprechaun everyone knows is weird." Iam paid no attention to the jokes and ridicules. What they didn't realize was that the more they paid attention to Iam, the less they paid attention to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Suddenly, while the leprechauns were trying to get to the end of the rainbow, in some places the green grass was so tall that they couldn't see where they were going, and in some places the grass was so itchy that many leprechauns had to stop and scratch and scratch. But not Iam, because the strangest thing happened. Iam made a fast turn to the right, and then to the left, and then another fast turn to the right, and then a faster turn to the left, and he tap danced as fast as his big feet could, in the opposite direction to where the rainbow was stretching across the blue sky. The music grew stronger and faster, which made Iam dance faster and stronger, except for his mom and dad and his grandmas and grandpas. No leprechaun paid any attention to Iam. But his mom did whisper to herself, "What is my young son doing? Oh dear, at the end of the race everyone's going to do what they always to him. Laugh at him. He's such a good leprechaun, even though he's, well, he is my son, so I can say it, a little different than the rest of us." Tap dancing through the field, Ian paid no attention to the sky turning bright blue to dark blue, and darker blue, and darker blue, and suddenly, without realizing it, it was night. All the other leprechauns, exhausted from running, skipping, and crawling towards the bright rainbow that had disappeared, decided to fall down into the tall green grass and sleep. They knew that the rainbow is created by the sun and mist. The sleeping leprechauns knew the sun would rise again in the morning, and blending with the mist, a new colorful rainbow would appear. But Ian kept tap dancing towards the end of the field, behind a mountain, over a hill, behind another mountain, across the lake, over another hill. Why? Because he knew that he would find something none of the leprechauns knew existed in the village. A moonbow. Yes, a moonbow is a rainbow created when the moon and the mist blend together. And what did he find at the end of the moonbow? The biggest pot of shining, sparkling, dazzling gold coins. Well, needless to say, all the leprechauns, including Ian's parents, were stunned, surprised, and shocked when Ferdy, in the morning, announced, "And the champion is Ian." All the leprechauns stretched and, yawning, ran, skipped, crawled as fast as their little legs would permit. And what did they see? Ian tap dancing around a pot of gold. Darcy thought about writing more to the ending, but she fell asleep at the computer. So she just wrote, "The end." The next day in Mrs. O'Connell's class, the bright, frizzy, red-haired teacher read each student's story. She saved Darcy's for last because she had a hunch it would be the best. And it was. Mrs. O'Connell said to the students when they had finished applauding, "I'm awarding Darcy an A+ for her story about the Tap Dancing Leprechaun. I like this story so very much because it has a great lesson for all of us to learn. Never, never, never try to be something you aren't just to make others like you. Be you. Be whoever you want to be, and don't laugh or make fun or talk bad about anyone who's different than you, because they just might become the A+ champions."